Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, and welcome to another FP&A Trends Webinar. Today we are going to talk about the subject of FP&A Predictive Analytics and how we can manage uncertainty with predictive analytics and predictive planning. My name is Larissa Malnichuk. I'm CEO and Managing Director of FP&A Trends Group and International FP&A Board, and I'm here today to help with this facilitation. Let me quickly remind you that the main mission of our global FP&A Trends webinars is to share the latest trends and developments with our global community. And it's amazing, I can see that people still continue to register, and we already have more than 520 registrations from 68 countries. Welcome, everyone. A quick reminder about today's agenda. So we have only 1 hour, but we prepared 3, even 4 different sites of the same subject. We will share with you predictive planning maturity model, so what it is, and it shows very nicely the evolution of this technique. Then we will look at the importance of human intelligence and process for FP&A predictive analytics, presentation from the practitioner, a finance practitioner. The next one will be using predictive analytics for improving financial forecasting, and it will be sharing experience from practitioner data scientists. And then we will look at the role of technology, and experts in IT and technology will share with us this view, so you can see that it's all well-rounded and balanced. Conclusions and recommendations, and of course, Q&A session. Now I would like to ask our international panel to switch on their cameras, please. Francis, Audrey, Francesco, welcome. Fantastic to see all of you here. And let me give a very quick introduction. So Francis de Blasio is VP of Financial Planning and Analysis at CAS.com. And Francis is a member of our Chicago FP&A board, and she joined us from Chicago, from the US today. Francis has different experience in different industries, but she applies the same foundational analytical and process-oriented building blocks in addressing business challenges. And she has a lot of experience, actually, in applying predictive, prescriptive, and machine learning. And today she's going to talk about it's important to use human intelligence. And in reality, each project is started from the finance process, from human intelligence of FP&A finance people. Welcome, Francis.
Glad to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. Then we have Adri Purkayasta, who joined us from London, UK. Adri is Group Head of AI and Digital Risk Analytics for BNP Paribas Group, with global responsibility and hundreds of analytical predictive projects responsibility. So he started at the AI Risk and Governance program, and he's responsible at the moment for strategy, development, and rollout of analytics solutions to support the group risk management platform. Previously he founded companies in consumer, internet, edtech, renewable energy, and nanotech space as well. So today, Adri is going to share how to use predictive analytics for improving financial forecasting, his practical experience, and it would be experience of professional data scientists. Adri, you're welcome. Adri, you're on mute. If you can unmute, please.
Excited to be here.
Thank you so much, Adri. The next panelist is Francesco Morini, who is Global Director for Analytics and Innovation at CCH Tagetik. Francesca has always worked in supporting finance analytics area, previously at Deloitte and then at HP, with deep focus on banking industry. But his main focus at CCH Tagetik is to translate cutting-edge technologies into business value, running different innovation projects, and of course, predictive analytics, predictive prescriptive, because my understanding that CCH Tagetik is going to roll out this project very, very quickly that would be available for customers. Francesca is going to talk about the role of technology today. And Francesco, you're welcome.
Yes, thanks. I'm very glad to be here.
Thank you so much, everyone. I have just a few general slides, so you can switch off your cameras, dear panelists, just for a moment. Quick introduction. So my background, I'm responsible for FP&A Trends Group. Our international FP&A board is in 27 countries, in 27 cities, 16 countries, 4 continents. And just recently we started best practice workshops and consultancies. This is 1 hour webinar. We will have 2 polling questions, and I would like to encourage you to participate. It's so easy to do with this technology. We will have interactive Q&A session at the end, and please start ask questions via the chat box. And you can start sending your questions straight away from the first presentation. A presentation is available right now at handouts, and you will receive the recording and presentation within 1 day after the meeting. And please stay with us when we finish the meeting, because we would like you to share, we would like your participation at the survey. I would like to say thank you so much to our technology sponsor, CCH Tagetik, Corporate Performance Management Solutions, flexible system, and one of those award-winning technologies, quite well known. And CCH Tagetik is a part of Wolters Kluwer Group. So thank you so much, CCH Tagetik, for making this possible for us. And I will start with just a few introductory slides. I know that many of you are quite senior and you know these definitions, but just to make sure that we're all consistent with those definitions. So today we are going to talk about machine learning and artificial intelligence. So artificial intelligence enables the machine to think and react like human. And machine learning, the technique that particularly used in FP&A, it's subset of artificial intelligence, and this is a system that can learn from data through self-improvement and with minimal human supervision. And also, I would like to give a quick definition of predictive analytics, because I see a lot of confusion. Sometimes people say machine learning, artificial intelligence, predictive analytics is the same. So predictive analytics is the use of data, statistical algorithms, and machine learning techniques to identify the likelihood of future outcomes based on historical data. So it's not always machine learning, as sometimes people confuse it. So it could be a number of different methods, but obviously done with the machine. And I would like just to share with you how we moved from traditional to predictive planning. So traditional planning model very often it's not predictive at all, yeah, and we can't even call this predictive planning. But then when you start to use driver-based model, obviously with driver-based model you already have predictive element, but a driver-based model could be done in Excel, and this is human intelligence. But then we go to the next one that started to be developed in many companies over the last couple of years. So we are talking about not only driver-based model, but also predictive analytics, also even using statistical trends and machine learning algorithms. And there are different levels of development of how organization is using predictive analytics. And I don't want to go in much details to this model, but actually it's a very good demonstration that it's starting from the basic, when you have your driver-based model in Excel, and the leading stage, obviously, when you have this fully integrated, going through different levels of your organization. Driver-based planning, it's using ML-defined analytics, machine learning, predictions, predictive and prescriptive. So this is my very quick introduction. So today we will look at 3 different sides. I already mentioned to you that FP&A practitioner view, data scientist view, and technology expert view. So let us start from the first. So all starts from human intelligence, all starts from the preparation of the process. Human intelligence for predictive analytics. Francis de Blasio, VP of Financial Planning and Analysis, cars.com. Francis, you're welcome, and the stage is yours.
Thank you very much, Larissa, and welcome everyone. We can move to the next slide. So my definition of predictive analytics is defined as the resources, tools, and processes involved in generating an expected outcome based on certain underlying assumptions. I have experience in predictive analytics at United Airlines, Baxter Healthcare, Hospira Healthcare, Ticketmaster, and now at Cars.com. And in all cases with all employers, no matter what the situation, I have heavily relied on human intelligence and standardized, robust processes to build predictive revenue and expense models. Interestingly, the most predictive and robust models and the most resources, human resources, put towards predictive analytics was at United Airlines. An airline is typically highly capitalized, labor intensive, subject to both cyclical and seasonal factors, and in some cases highly leveraged, which typically results in a very low profit margin. And for these reasons, United really invested in its human resources and processes, which came to our rescue after the events of 9/11. You can move to the next slide. So we will always need human intelligence, and this came to bear during 9/11. After the events of 9/11, obviously there was a huge decline in the demand for air travel, which meant it was going to depress our revenue for some period of time, an unknown amount of time. And we needed to right size the airline. We had over 100,000 employees at the time, and we eventually moved down to 50,000 employees, and our revenue was almost cut in half at the lowest point. And if I just take one element of our costs that we had to right size, our flight operations costs, or basically our pilot labor costs, we had models that would tweak what we needed on a day-to-day basis and resulted in costs that we needed, but nothing that would take the operation from what it was pre-9/11 to a 75% reduction or a 50% reduction. And you can't do it overnight with a pilot. Pilots can't fly all different aircraft. They are only trained for specific aircraft. And so what we had to introduce to these models was an inefficient component of this massive change in our operation, taking aircraft out of the fleet, retiring them because we would no longer need them because of the reduction in demand, and then eventually a reduction in our pilot labor force. But that takes a massive training exercise to train everybody down into the aircraft that we were going to keep for the long term. And so we had to introduce a necessary component of inefficiency into our labor models and not optimize our costs and our operation as we right-size the operation. So obviously this was a new key driver that had to be introduced to our models and recalibrated to make sure that it was yielding sensible results. We also had components of labor that were not as complex, like our healthcare premiums. Those remained the same, at least in the short term. And so we had, we were grateful for some easy forecasting wins. And there was not sufficient time during this volatile period when we were right-sizing the airline, because nobody knew what that sort of long-term steady state of demand and revenue would be. So there wasn't sufficient data to use machine learning. We had to manually adjust this over time. And then we had to prepare senior management for what the results would be, which would be, we're going to be inefficient in the short term because we cannot right-size the airline immediately. We can't right-size the labor force immediately. And therefore, you need to expect that we are going to have very high unit costs until we do right-size the airline. And that takes humans to communicate that and explain it, and then prepare what we need to prepare for that eventuality. Next slide. We have always also used an established process, no matter, again, what the situation was, and no matter what the employer was. You always have to go back and confirm what is happening on the front line with your key stakeholders. Finance cannot live in an ivory tower. We are not day-to-day touching the operation, and we need to continue to get new information from our stakeholders, especially when times are as volatile or as uncertain as it was at United Airlines after 9/11. And then we need to measure our accuracy. You can only get better if you find out what you don't do well. And you need to communicate what you don't do well, figure out what's really driving the results, and then fine-tune your models to incorporate new data and become more accurate and predictable. Next slide. So what are my recommendations? Always continue to invest in your human resources and your standardized processes. There is no substitute for that, both on a day-to-day basis and when you are dealing with a crisis. You will always rely on those foundational principles. If you want to start with machine learning, and I highly recommend it as it can free up those human resources for higher order work, start with a limited scope, show how accurate and predictive it can be, and how you are saving on human resources and other resources, and then gradually increase the scope as your data increases and as you become more and more accurate. And now I welcome comments from the panelists.
Francis, thank you so much. Fantastic presentation, reminding us that everything starts from human intelligence, definitely. And not surprising that in FP&A at the moment, we require not only classical FP&A analyst position, but also those two additional roles, emerging roles that we call FP&A data scientist and FP&A architect, definitely to define the next process. So thank you, it's great. Now I would like Audrey to comment on this presentation. Any additional items you would like to share with us, please?
Thank you, Francis. It's incredible. The point that you mentioned, which is on the airline industry, it is so much important to have accuracy. And the outcome of predictive analytics is really important to be precise than some other industries because the leeway is less. So I imagine the importance of human in there is accentuated much more than any other industry you can think of.
Thank you, Audrey.
Thank you, Audrey. Francesco, what would be your commentary?
Yeah, well, it's really interesting to me, and I mean, I really appreciated, I mean, how the human intelligence can help when you do not have enough data to, I mean, run a full machine learning process end to end, and also how you can, I mean, your insights on how you can prepare the management on the results. So that, because that is really key to, I mean, have the level of introduction at the set at the right level, so people can expect, I mean, what they can expect in 1 year, in 1 month, in 3 years from now, so they can make, I mean, they can judge the result in the right way.
Thank you, Francesco. Thank you, everyone. Francis, fantastic presentation. And now this is the time to find out what is the planning process in your companies. We would like to ask you to vote. We would like to ask you to participate at these polling questions. So I'm launching the poll, and we would like to ask you, how would you describe your current FP&A process? Please, can you start vote as soon as you see the one that is the best description for you? So is your process static, not predictive at all? Is your process has some predictive elements, for example, drivers? Is it fully driver-based, or is it already digital using automation, predictive analytics, AI, ML? Please continue to vote. I can see that almost 50% of you voted, just a few seconds. Please choose whether it's static, not predictive, has some elements of prediction, fully driver-based or digital. So I can see that more than almost 60% of you voted, just a few seconds. and I'm closing the poll, and I'm sharing the results with everyone. Interesting. So the majority of you, 62%, have some predictive elements, and it's not surprising. Definitely, we always had variable expenses and revenue forecasting and all of this. And 4% of you already digital. Amazing. Fully driver-based 14%, static, not predictive 20%. Francis, what would be your commentary on this?
This is not surprising at all to me. I would say that most of my employers have had some predictive elements, which 62% of those who polled are also experiencing. So not surprising to me. And obviously we have a ways to go to become either fully driver-based or fully digital.
Thank you, Francis. Audrey, your quick commentary, please.
It's not surprising. However, what is very interesting is that we have 62% predictive elements. So there is a start. And if there's a start, then we will hopefully, as an industry, move into the 4% category quite soon, I hope.
Absolutely, yeah. And amazing to see 18% that either digital or fully driver-based. So well done, those companies. I'm hiding the results. Thank you for your votes. Thank you for your commentaries. And we are moving on. Obviously, it all starts from human intelligence, but then there are limitations of this human intelligence. So we have to find the balance. What technology can help us with predictive analytics for forecasting? Let us look at the data scientist view. Audrey, you're welcome to switch on your camera. And the presentation is about using predictive analytics for improving the forecasting. Audrey,
Thank you, Larissa.
Group Head of AI and Digital Risk Analytics, and you're welcome. The microphone is yours.
Thank you. So I'll just start off by sharing my quick experience on this field. So I started off 10 years back, started a company using computer vision to solve a problem, and then moved into a startup for IoT analytics. Then did some work on marketing and customer analytics for Pitney Bowes, worked in EY for forensic data analytics, and then in Deloitte in data science and AI. Currently in BNP Paribas, my focus is AI and digital risk analytics. And over the course of the entire journey, I have come to believe that the application of predictive analytics responds or is congruent to anticipating outcomes. And when you're anticipating outcomes, an easy way to say how would you differ predictive analytics that was done in the past to that of modern approaches that incorporate machine learning and deep learning. I see both as a crystal ball, whereby machine learning and deep learning gives you the ability for a smarter crystal ball. And you do so by having different advanced class of models where the relation between the input and output is not defined by an analyst, and it's more defined by data and the model. However, a key aspect is data in the entire context. And from my personal view, where we have been using forecasting, advanced forecasting and predictive analytics in the private capital industry in the past for PE, and also in certain applications currently, I have noticed that the question always starts with why. Why do you need predictive analytics? And for FP&A, the why has been coupled. As you can see, you can either justify your budget allocations based on your company performance. You can understand your growth drivers and what has caused increase and decrease of revenues and cost. And you can plan in an agile way for future growth. So those are the outcomes you're trying to achieve. Now the question is, how would you do it? So if you take the aspect of a customer-based business where you are trying to understand which customer segments are profitable and which support long-term growth drivers, then you would try to understand and segment those customer segments and forecast the estimated revenue and cost of customer acquisition for those customer cohorts. Now that is essentially a way to look into the entire company's customer equity and then create a financial story of the customer. However, among all this, the important aspect is judgment. So I see the incorporation of predictive analytics, more so machine learning, reduces the cost of prediction or facilitates more prediction. However, the value of judgment, and as Frances said, very importantly mentioned in her presentation, that human intelligence, ergo judgment, becomes much more important. Next slide, please. So how do you go about doing ML-led financial forecasting? Before we start into some of the key tenets of doing so, I would classify between the three categories I see currently forecasting is done. One is model-based, heuristics-based. The other one is statistical methods. They are, as you know, Holt Winters. There are other technical approaches which has been used over the industry, from supply chain to even in finance for a long time. And ML-based approaches, which are more computer science domain focused, where you've got optimization and inductive forecasting approaches. We are trying to optimize towards a better prediction. So with all that in context, for ML-based approaches, I have noticed that the focus for FP&A use cases is around breaking down your financial planning activities very intelligently into smaller parts, whereby if you're performing forecasting operations, the designing of the job is so much important than the essentially prediction. So good job design around forecasting is very important. Then having a common machine learning or data science framework whereby FP&A professionals and data scientists can collaborate, and they have a generic and a shared computation platform where they can collaborate and in an agile way recompute the forecasting and then provide that for budgeting and planning is very useful. And finally, the important aspect is data and the ability to refresh data often as and when the context changes, there's drift in the population that you're using, in a way that the downstream output, which is the forecasted models, are commensurate to the changing condition. And then that takes me to the next slide, please. Some of the best practices, and these best practices are cascade into the area of using machine learning for financial planning. Foremost, ML really enables usage of exogenous variables or external variables. And also another benefit of machine learning for forecasting or predictive analytics use cases is that it empowers the usage of very weak learners, weak models, but many of those. So you've got knowledge of the crowd. Then if you go to the next point, which is pursuing interpretable machine learning model, ever increasingly, it's not good predictions, but understandable predictions that are becoming important, as trust in the models is of very much importance. So if you are performing ML explainability to a good degree, the other context is around the uncertainty estimation about your forecasting. And I have seen repeatedly predictions will have variability, so there has to be a approach to creating upper and lower bounds for forecasted values, and the aim should be to reducing that and having better estimates. And finally, backtesting. Models are good, but they're only better if they have been backtested with real data and continuously changing conditions to understand the reducing and the reduction of the model error rate. And then the component of mutual collaboration and trust, the trust between business users or FP&A professionals, CFOs, even board, that too of data scientist professionals. Because if there is no analytics translation, then essentially the outputs are lost. So translation, the incorporation of that is very important. Finally, empowering data scientists to go to higher order predictive tasks and improving the predictions, whereby the generic predictions are performed by business users. So data scientists deployed in predictive approaches, which require much more technical knowledge. I'll also touch on, before we go to the next slide, around the importance of a good forecasting system architecture to that of ML models. Machine learning models has to go hand in hand with the platform you're using to essentially do your planning, budget planning, and financial planning. If it is not integrated well, there will be essentially a lot of information drop and loss. So the signal is shared well when you've got a very embedded infrastructure whereby there is a seamless transition between both. Next slide, please. So in the past, in advisory capacity, I have supported companies from the private capital area, whereby the art of the possible we tried to help and support was in essentially creating a human-centered ML system. And when I say human-centered, it's human augmented AI ML capability. And at the basis of that has been with the availability of cloud technologies, the availability of cloud platform with financial data warehouse, and that is intelligent. And some of the key pillars of that was an end-to-end forecasting and strategic planning platform, or the ability to do so with very agile approach. And when I say agile, it's essentially the speed of finding model outputs and then recalibrating based on data, optimizing to what you need to optimize. Then the requirement is around the scalability. If you're using exogenous variables, you're taking in external data, for instance, weather, or in some cases you're understanding, the GIS locations of your potential customers, you will need a compute performant platform which is enabling you to do financial analytics. Finally, the importance around metrics, because metrics are the key. Metric definition leads to forecasting metrics, and that is a key aspect of financial planning. It will differ. If you are a SaaS business which sells software as a service, your metrics will be around a customer lifetime value, or it could be around customer acquisition costs. It can be on churn, so on and so forth. It will be different for another type of business. So metric definition and forecasting those to understand and correlate with your drivers is an important part. And then finally, the appropriate UI, the UX, whereby the augmentation of human and the machine is catered well. So there is a true synergy between both. And finally, I will just end the talk with predictive analytics as the focus. As you can see, predictive analytics, if done well with the other horsemen, such as causal analytics, a good technology platform, leads to a more robust way to forecast sales volume, sales pipeline, cost, customer acquisition, and so on and so forth. Thank you very much.
Audrey, thank you so much for the overview of your experience, how data scientists help FP&A. Great insights, and I would like to ask our panelists to switch on the cameras and to comment. Francis, any subject matter on this presentation, please?
Thank you, Audrey. That was especially informative, and I was nodding my head the whole time during your presentation because it really resonated with me. But I want to specifically point out how important back testing is before you begin to use machine learning in your planning. It does gain credibility once you can, if you can, go back in the past and predict what the future brought. It really gains a lot of credibility and tests the model and helps you fine tune it. So it's ready to go when you're ready to use it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Francesco?
Yeah, so thanks, Audrey. I also found that really informative. And something that always comes to my mind when, I remember all of those technicalities and data science things, that the more you can embed this process in FP&A standard processes, the more value you get as an end user. Because as you said, data scientists and practitioners need a common platform where they can collaborate, because moving to different systems, moving data here and there will not increase transparency and will not increase auditability. So you will always have to deal with that when you are in finance. So I think embedding is really the key point here.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Great commentaries. Now this is the time to ask our participants to share with us what is the state of deployment of artificial intelligence, machine learning, and also predictive analytics in your company. I'm launching the poll. As soon as you see it, can you start voting, please? How would you describe your current level of deployment of predictive analytics, machine learning for FP&A? Select one of those options. The first one is we currently use all of those methods. Or the second one, we plan to deploy in the next 6 months, we plan to deploy in the next couple of years, or we do not have those plans at all. So please, if you can share with us, continue to vote. I can see that more than 55% of you voted. So where you are at the moment, are you planning, or you already deploying, or don't have any plans at all? Just a few seconds, I'm closing the poll and I'm sharing the results with everyone. Interesting results. So 4% currently use PA/ML for FP&A, 10% planning to deploy in the next 6 months, 54% will deploy in the next couple of years, and 32% don't have plans yet. Adri, any commentaries from you, please?
Yes, so Larissa, it's surprising that a large portion of the companies or the respondents don't have plan for using predictive analytics, machine learning for financial planning and analysis. I think this is a very important tool, and the age has come to be able to use it more than before.
Maybe the reason why they don't, because they don't realize the potential, you see, and I'm sure that this figure will be changing very soon. Thank you so much for your commentary. I would like to ask you, Francesco, what is your initial reaction on those figures?
I mean, I'm also surprised by the 32%, but I mean, I want to be positive here, and if I compare this result with the result of the prior poll, I mean, we can say that the 64% or something like that of the prior poll that were in the process of, I mean, they were at a good point with introducing some pieces of machine learning or predicting their process. I mean, there could be quite a good chance that they will deploy other predictive intelligence pieces in the next couple of years. So I want to be positive.
Absolutely, but it's positive because the majority of people either have it or they plan to deploy this in the future. I'm hiding the results with thanks to all people who voted. Thank you so much, and thank you for your commentaries. Now we will look at the role of technology, and I think it's a very interesting evolution here. So all our previous webinars where we looked at predictive, prescriptive, and machine learning, it was the classical example where, like in Adri's case, people used internal or consultancy projects. It was the separate project, not part of FP&A solution. But this is the definite trend right now. So enabled AI, ML, enabled predictive analytics, enabled planning technology. And we have technology expert to share experience with us. Francesco, the floor is yours, and the presentation is yours. You're welcome.
Thank you, Larissa. Thank you. I mean, I'm Francesco Marini. I'm Global Director for Analytics and Innovation at CCH Tagetik. I mean, I think we can move to the next slide directly from here. So what will session will be about? So this session will be really about how you can become really a data-driven company. So you can implement those pieces of predictive analytics and machine learning in your processes in your company and live happy with that. As we will see in the next slide, actually, I mean, the real everything really starts from data, and I think you're already familiar with what is usually called the good, the bad, and the ugly of data. So the good of data is that, I mean, with the modern technology, you're able to source more financial data and non-financial data, analyze that data quite quickly. The bad is that data can sometimes be dangerous. Can be dangerous because they can be wrong or not accurate, or can be also ugly in the sense that you cannot really interpret them and you cannot really get really the value of your data. And this brings me directly to my next slide, where this is just an example of how you can interpret your data in the wrong way. Of course, it's a joke, but it's really to tell you that it's not just data, it's not just a data exercise, because a correlation, for example, is not causation. So which means that if you find that set of data somehow correlated to another set of data, that does not really mean that you get the business value. For example, here you see those two curves that are that have a really high correlation, close to 100%. But one is the divorce rate in Maine, while the other one is the consumption of margarine. Of course, the two are not really related. So if you reduce the consumption of margarine, you have no chance to reduce or increase the divorce rate in Maine, and the other way around. So this is just to tell you that it's not just a data exercise. It's a data plus intuition plus technology exercise. All together will give you great result. And we will see in the next slide how you can really start applying that in your finance process, because it's not true that you need to structure a full machine learning process, or you can really start from the basics. You can really start from where you are in your planning exercise with your planning technology, and it really depends on what is your level. So where you stand in your organization in terms of complexity of the planning process. Maybe you are dealing with a few drivers, so you're doing driver-based planning, but you're dealing with a limited number of drivers. And then you are looking more on some precondition that could be the seasonality and the steadiness of your data. And then also there you can apply some methods that are statistical methods. I'm not really into machine learning, but you can get that as a step-by-step approach. It doesn't have to be disruptive. You can start applying those methods, and you will immediately be able to deal with everything that is usually called time series. So everything that, it's numbers that depends on time. And you're still in the office of finance domain. And maybe then you want to expand your window. Maybe you want to increase the number of drivers. You want to move to more close to the business unit, more close to the operational side of things. And then at that point, you will find yourself that you can relax some of the hypotheses. And you can use much more accurate or complex, if you like, way to do things. And you can immediately cover using your finance data and some piece of non-financial data. You will be able to cover everything that has sometimes somehow to do with periodical events, something that repeats over time. You will be able, with those techniques, incrementally to get even more accuracy on those specific KPIs, on those specific P&L lines maybe that you want to predict. And then, of course, you can go even farther, and you can move to what is really machine learning in that sense. And so you will really relax the hypothesis. You will do just basic hypothesis. You really apply machine learning there. So not just a combination of statistics and let's say optimization algorithm, tree-based, how they are called, algorithm. And as much you improve the quality of your data, as much you increase the granularity of your data, you move to transaction or even to big data, then you can really apply the true machine learning to your process. But this does not mean, any of those steps is the end. Maybe one of those is the beginning of your journey, but no one of those is the end, because you can always improve the way you do things. You can always improve with the technology. And in the next slide, we will actually see what is preventing you from doing this. This is actually a survey that has been proposed at the Congress of Controllers in Munich in 2019. And actually, the practitioners there have identified 4 key points that are preventing them to having machine learning and predictive and AI going mainstream in their processes. Number one is the easiness of use. So, they see that not an easy to use technology. The second one is that it's not integrated, it's not embedded in the standard FP&A tool. The third one is that FP&A tools themselves are not really well integrated with the ERP system where the real transactional data live. And the fourth one is that AI and ML is not really able to connect financial data together with operational data, and they're not really able to create this kind of link between the two. So we think that the answer to that is in the technology. So the technology, because we have seen that from a human intelligence standpoint, you have your people that have that ingredient. We have seen that you have the data scientists that can provide provide the knowledge. So who is going to do that to merge all things together? Technology will merge things together. And in the next slide, we have identified what are the key pillars, what are the key drivers that are enabling this technology revolution. So the first one is that you are now able to have everything in one single platform, or everything in one single CPM platform in terms of data. That can incorporate also your operational data. And the modern technology, the speed, the in-memory databases can give you access directly to that data and have real-time or near real-time processes. And then we have predictive. Predictive is really mature now. So predictive has always been the holy grail of finance. Finance-driven AI machine learning has always been a dream, at least in the last 5-10 years. But now the technology is really mature for that. And also the understanding and the knowledge is really mature. Remember, all of those are a must. So you cannot really take just 2 or 3 of them. You have to take all of them in your technology stack to move to the next level. And in the next slide, we have tried to identify what are the pillars that your tools should accomplish in order to let you move to the next level. So the trend as of today is to use the so-called automated machine learning to really democratize the use of machine learning in finance or in any other area. How that is done? Well, the first thing is embedding. You need to embed that technology in your standard FP&A process and then in your standard FP&A tool. Having that technology needs to give you all the technicalities, say, covered by the machine. So you don't have to deal with the technical stuff. You don't have ideally to understand really from a data scientist standpoint what is behind the scenes. You have to understand functionally, from functional and finance standpoint, what is the value that is provided. And the first thing that you need to look for is that automated feature selection. The system will be able to tell you what is relevant and what is not. The second one is automated hyperparameters tuning, which means whatever the model that it will choose, it will tweak the model for you. You will just see the best result possible. The third one is automated model selection, because there are plenty of methods out of there. And maybe you have not the knowledge of doing that. Your technology, your predictive tool in the FP&A tool should be able to select the best model possible for you. And the fourth one is explainability. Explainability through native language generation. Because if you, as a human, want to consume results. We don't want to consume numbers. We want to consume results. We want to consume explanation. We want to consume explanation in the way that we are used to do, through words. So we want to have just one sentence that somehow summarize the findings of our machine. All of those is possible. All of that is possible using technology. You can have the embedding of that technology in your tool. This is the trend. This is where technology is going. Automated machine learning is something that will democratize the use of machine learning in finance. We are really convinced of that.
Francesco, thank you so much. Fantastic presentation and great overview of how technology can help and how technology will be enabled by predictive analytics and machine learning. Thank you for this. Francis, any commentaries from your side?
Yes, this resonated with me a lot, and a lot of his points that Francesco made. I'd say one of the most important ones as an FP&A practitioner is to watch out for the bad, the good, the ugly, or rather it is, and that is the improper use of data to draw the wrong conclusions. It's really important for FP&A practitioners to remain objective, make sure that data is being used properly and that the right conclusions are drawn or not drawn from the use of data.
Thank you so much, Francis. Audrey, your commentaries?
Yes, so I think the point that Francesco mentioned around the integration, lack of integration thereof between ERP systems, if you have a data science platform, and then external drivers, internal drivers, operational data, and financial data is really key. And I think this pain point is actually a pain point across other use cases as well. but predominantly in finance, FP&A. This is one of the key solutions or pain points which, if there's a solution, will really benefit.
Thank you so much. Great insight, great presentation. Let me give you a very quick commentary, the quick conclusion before we go to Q&A session. And a quick reminder to all the participants to continue to send your questions. We already have a lot, but we will be able to answer all of them. If not today, because of the time, then we will get back to you by email. Just a quick conclusion that obviously to manage uncertainty with predictive analytics, it's through the power of human intelligence and artificial intelligence. And by using predictive analytics, prescriptive analytics, machine learning. But what is interesting, the interesting trend that we see right now, that so-called machine learning projects, they are happening not only in the Office of Data Scientists, but now technology will help us to enable this. And the question would be whether we don't need data scientists at all. I don't think so. I think it would be collaboration. There will be bridges between finance and science, data science, but this is the trend we see. I would like to start now with the Q&A session. And the first question is to you, Francis. A very interesting one. I agree with the fact that human intelligence is the most important when preparing the plan. I believe that machine learning is more suitable for business as usual budgeting. After a year has passed from a plan divided between strategy and business as usual, how do you envision the automated model to select what would be the business as usual for the next period? Very interesting question.
So, right. So once you're in a stable environment, both internally and externally, I would say you want to start with baby steps in using machine learning. You want to start where you have really robust data and accurate historical data going back as far back as you can get it, and then obviously the tools and the personnel to run it and interpret the results.
Thank you so much, Francis. Audrey, the next question is to you. It's about the role. So who should be involved in those projects in the companies? What competencies are required? Financial analyst or statistician or mathematician or IT-based personnel? What is your view and your experience, Audrey? I remember that in your company, you have more than 800 AI projects and dozens of FP&A related. So you are the best person to answer.
Yeah, so I think, thank you, Larissa, for the question. A key sort of individual is the translator or somebody who has domain knowledge. With data science, without domain knowledge is very difficult. Obviously, you can have data scientists move from one domain to another. And then the other aspect is around financial data. Financial data, if we talk about capital markets through to even in financial planning and analysis, requires a different approach towards supporting and buttressing, curation, cleaning, so on and so forth, and modeling. So the capability around modeling financial data and time series forecasting is a skill that is very important to find success in the application of machine learning for financial planning and analysis. It's very different from machine vision, where you are using a different input source.
Thank you so much. Great answer. The next question is to you, Francesco. From your experience, which size does it make sense for a company to deploy AI, ML, and predictive?
Well, I think that, that technology makes always a lot of sense. And there are a lot of, if you don't know that yet, but if you don't see that yet, but there is always a good reason to move to that technology. And the first benefit that I see and that I recommend, that is not probably the one that you see immediately, is the automation. Because whatever number you can produce with 100 people, that is the basics for whatever process you're running. If you can produce that just by one click and have those 100 people spend their time to refine or comment that number, you will get an incredible value, and you will, probably benefit of the real intelligence of those people rather than having them crunching numbers. So I strongly encourage all the people to start playing with predictive machine learning, because also if you don't see the benefit now, I will tell you that you will see the benefits really soon.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Francesco. Now, a question to all three of you. So the same question, and if you can give your points of view from your different functional backgrounds. And the question is, let's say that we have all the resources needed to start this project. What would be your first 3 steps to deploy artificial intelligence, machine learning, predictive analytics in FP&A? Francis, let us start from you.
Sure, I would identify the drivers, ensure that you have sufficient data and historical data to go back and actually be able to predict the future. And then, as Audrey mentioned in his presentation, you need to back test and make sure that what you have selected will really drive the predictability and accuracy that you're expecting.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Audrey, your view as a data scientist, what are the steps?
Yeah, so thank you. So sure, I would include Francis's suggestions on having human who are experimenters. If you don't experiment, modeling by definition is an experiment. You will not get the conviction that you should pursue. So that's the first. The philosophy should be around experimentation. And then to do experimentation, you need to have that technology platform that enables collaboration and collaboration. And once you've done that, you have to understand your experiments. That's why you have to understand your models, good data quality, and that will take you to a better place than before.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Francesco, what would be your suggestions?
My recommendation should be, have of course all of those ingredients, but I would recommend to start from the process. So start understanding where that piece of technology can really bring value into your process, and how you can really complement your process with technology, with the new tool, if you like, rather than recreating your process just to use the new toy, the new tool. So the idea is, you should be able to use the technology where it makes sense in your process. So first thing is, try to understand, sit down and try to understand where the new technology brings the real value in your process, and start from there.
Thank you so much. Great insights for all of you. There are more questions, but because of the time issues, we have to conclude this Q&A session now. But again, if you still have your questions and those that are unanswered, we will do this within a week. We will share those questions with our panelists. I have just a few slides just to remind you that there are some events we would like to invite you. So it's Art and Science of Digitized FP&A Business Partnering. What does it involve to move to the digital data-driven FP&A? So please join us. And then finally, I would like to say thank you so much to all of you, to all the participants, for being here with us. Please stay. When we finish the webinar, there will be a survey, and we really value your feedback. I would like to say thank you so much to our sponsor, CCH Tagetik. Thank you for making this possible. Thank you for your great support. And finally, our international fantastic panel. Thank you so much for being here with us. Thank you for sharing your stories, your experiences, your vision with us. Thank you so much. Let us stay in touch. And I really hope to see you very soon in person. Thank you so much. And please stay in touch. The information is here. And when I finish this webinar, there will be a survey. So please, if you can answer. So bye-bye, everyone.
Thank you.
All the best.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you so much.